So last week I promised you that we would be covering the other most common question I get asked after a keynote on recognition, and that is, how do I make sure recognition is sincere? Such a good question. And I think what I've learned from digging into this question with people is that sometimes it's because their efforts to recognize have fallen flat. And I actually have another vlog on that, so don't miss out on that one as well. But the bottom line is, here you are really trying to authentically acknowledge people. You want to make sure that what you feel inside is how it comes out of your mouth or in your facial expressions or in your body language, or you're not quite sure. And really, a lot of us don't have a lot of practice in recognition. We're so busy running around doing our jobs, or that recognition's not as big a part of our organizations or families or communities as we'd like it, so we're not entirely sure. So let me just assure you that practice helps this tremendously. And not only that, it's your intention that really matters. So even if you make an attempt and you think that you could do it a little bit more sincerely, or you could try it a little differently, then just keep going. And also remember that if it doesn't quite have the same resonance, it doesn't have the same impact that you were hoping, it may not be you. It may be that the way in which that person wants to be recognized isn't quite the way you delivered it, and you've learned something. I mean, you wouldn't have learned that had you not tried, right? And also, of course, they may be just going through a rough time or find it really hard to accept compliments. Maybe they're really struggling with their sense of self-efficacy, or they're going through a rough patch in a relationship or in their job. So the fact that you are recognizing is still going to move the needle. So I'm going to share with you the things that roadblock sincerity, so that you can know, as long as I don't do these things, I can feel pretty sure that my recognition is sincere. Number one, tokenism. Somebody told them somewhere that we need to recognize people, and so we're going to recognize, you're the next person we're going to recognize. I mean, we hear a lot about the trophy generation, and frankly, I'm not entirely sure that we have just a trophy generation, but their point is really well taken, that if people feel like they're just being recognized because it's their turn, it doesn't really land. So as long as you're not recognizing somebody just because you feel like you have to, then it is probably sincere. Number two, it's too long in between recognition. I mean, so many organizations, this is actually the number one spend in Canada, according to the Conference Board of Canada, who does a study every 6 years analyzing Canadian organizations, how they recognize their people and what they spend their money on, how much they spend their money on. The number one way that people recognize is years of service. Talk about a long time in between. I mean, some people don't even start recognizing people until they've been there for 10 plus years. And heaven's sakes, people switch jobs 7 to 15 times in their lifetime. I don't think you're going to get 10 years in if you were switching jobs that often. But that doesn't mean to say that the value that you're getting from somebody, if let's say they're only with you for 2 years, isn't tremendous. How do you recognize them in between? And frankly, you're more likely to keep them longer than 2 years if they feel valued and appreciated. So don't play into that game around, we got to do years of service, and that the really big deal we make for people is 25 years. Now, a side note to all of this, if you have a very strong years of service program and you have long tenure in your employees, you don't want to get rid of this program. That is not the advice I'm giving you. The whole point of this vlog is about, how do I make sure recognition is sincere? You need to recognize people more than just at your tokenism potential events, where it's like, okay, we're going to recognize you because you've been here 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Well, what if in fact the person who has been there 15 years isn't performing as well as the person who's been there 6 months? So we need to make sure that we are recognizing people along the way and not leave too big a gap in between. When I do staff appreciation events, you know the number one thing they tell me they don't like? General emails. Yeah. You know the one where there's a good job everybody email that goes out to everyone. It's generic. Yes, it may be sincerely created and crafted, but the receipt of it isn't usually that sincere, because it could be to anybody. Well, frankly, it is to anybody and everyone. And so who specifically do you want to acknowledge? Maybe you need to do some personalized shout outs. If you do want to have a staff cheer, or you want to acknowledge the whole team, that's awesome. Maybe you've met a certain milestone. That's great. But please make sure you don't miss out on the specific acknowledgments. And if it's not specific people, what specifically do you want to acknowledge? Thanks to this team, because if they didn't do this, we wouldn't be where we are. And thanks to that team for contributing this, and this team worked extra hours. Like, make it really specific so that people know, you noticed, even if it is a general email to everybody. However, I will say the more general emails you do, the less it makes an impact. And so it's better to be able to send personalized, meaningful notes. It would be better to send it, let's say, to each one of those teams to say, hey guys, thank you so much for doing this, as opposed to one general email for the entire organization. Number 4, not specific. Perhaps you can see some examples of not specific in some of the things that I've already shared here. When it is feeling like anybody could have written this email. You don't even know my name. You don't really know what was going on or why this was such a success, but somebody said to you, hey, you know what? You should probably send it a message. You should probably write a card. You should probably print a generic card and send it out to everybody. It doesn't have the same impact. I mean, I know when I get personal, lovely little notes from people who send me a Christmas card, I cherish those. If it's from like my, accounting firm and it just says, thank you to a wonderful client. All the best of you in 2019. Recycle. It doesn't mean anything. I just think you just killed a tree for nothing because you're just sending this to everybody. And no, I do not feel more loved by you because you put a stamp on it. So what is it specifically that you can share with people so that they know sincerely that they matter and their contributions are noticed? The 5th piece, is it really about their values and strengths? You see, so often when we recognize people, it is what matters to the organization, what the organization's values are, what the team objectives are. And hey, by all means, we want to acknowledge those things too. But if I never have an acknowledgement that specifically that you know what I most value, you know what my strengths are, you know what fires me up, you know what my goals are. If I never get an acknowledgement about that, particularly if we've had a one-on-one conversation about it or multiple of them, well, I'm going to feel like what clearly me as a human being, unique and interesting and different, well, I guess that just doesn't matter. If you want to sincerely recognize people, recognize their unique strengths, contributions, and values. It will be memorable to them every time because they may never have worked for a boss or with a colleague that has had that attention to detail and have remembered it. Even if you are incredibly busy, you can create a spreadsheet of the things that you learn about your people. Believe me, as a business owner, I have a CRM, a customer relationship management system, and I need to note these things down so that I can remember what is important to my clients. And it's not that I don't care about them if I have to note it. I'm 43 years old and I've had 2 children. Those children took half my brain cells. The other half that are left, I'm going to need some cueing. It is not cheating to create a tool that will help you remember that. And then when you specifically acknowledge and recognize them, it is something that has been built out of a powerful conversation and a relationship that you have built with them over time. I hope you found some really valuable insights about how do you make sure recognition is sincere, because really my goal here is to help you be your greatness magnified every time. And if you can do that for yourself, then you can go out and elevate other people's greatness. My name's Sarah McVanel. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel to have a little bit of greatness in your week every Monday.